Angie, first talk about what happened here, because you're in Kansas City, you made a major investment, all of a sudden you see investor money flying into women's sports at a greater rate, and you had a weekend with the stadium filled. Why did you invest in the sport?
Absolutely. And it was an amazing weekend as we hosted our inaugural match in the first stadium built for a women's team. And, we see a tremendous opportunity from an investment perspective in women's sports. And the investment in the stadium is a long-term investment, and it really establishes a different opportunity for us on the revenue side of all the different ways that we can generate revenue. And it allows these athletes to have a place that's their own. And we control so many more things with our schedule and the opportunity. So it's been an amazing weekend here in Kansas City.
Well, what's the return profile? It's interesting for you. You're an investor by trade. You also brought in JPMorgan to be a part of the investor group into the arena, to the point that we've been reporting here at Bloomberg News. And you also brought in Patrick Mahomes and his wife. What do you all expect out of this in the end?
It's interesting. So we bought this team in December of 2020. And honestly, I've been in fast growing businesses my entire career. Nothing is growing as fast as this opportunity in women's sports. I mean, I think it is growing. Potential is probably 100 times what we put into it.
Well, what's driving that growth here? Why do you think there's so much excitement about it now as opposed to in the past?
That's a great question, because I would have said in '99 when the women's national team won the World Cup, I would have said that was the moment for women's sports, and I think I would have been a little bit early. But so many things have happened since then. It's a long-term evolution of Title IX. It's the number of female athletes that play the game at young ages and into college, and there just hasn't been a real professional opportunity before. It's the combination of the disintermediation of media, of the way people consume sports, but mostly the athletes have always been there. And now there's a place to really showcase them. And we're seeing the growth in the US, globally, in soccer, in basketball, in volleyball, everywhere.
Now, I'm curious too, this arena alone was a $117 million stadium, as we've been saying. You guys brought JPMorgan into it. More than 11,000 seats in this stadium, as we are showing on air right now. So why Kansas? Talk to us a little bit about the excitement around the area, the space, and what is drawing so many people to this stadium. And, part of this backstory about how you got JPMorgan involved.
Sure. Well, Kansas City is the greatest sports town in this country. I think a lot of people know that. And, obviously, Brittany and now Patrick are investors along with us. But this city has always been a great sports town and a great soccer town. And so when we had the opportunity to bring a women's professional team back to Kansas City, we knew it would do really well here.
Talking a little more about the markets here, it's interesting. More and more we're talking about investors and in alternative assets, as you're doing here. But I'm really curious, long-time credit expertise here that we're bringing to the table. With the Fed decision this week expected, should interest rates remain higher for longer? Should we see some change in that dot plot over there? How does that change how you think about putting new money to work, Angie?
It's interesting. It's been our view for a while that we would probably be in this situation for longer. And I think, the markets have obviously reversed a little bit their position in the last few months. You mentioned the 2-year. I think that's a great place to start. We invest in credit, and what we're seeing for companies, the opportunity is fantastic. With our strategies, we can go anywhere. And so there may be some areas of credit that, where credit spreads are at their heights or close to them over the last 10 years. But we're seeing still a tremendous opportunity in the leveraged loan market, in the CLO market. And for companies, they're doing pretty well. And the rally and the strength we've seen in the credit market is actually helping some of these companies and giving them a lifeline to extend it. Because I would have said the market split into two pieces: a small minority that are struggling to get their balance sheet in order, but the vast majority are doing great.
Now, how do you think about inflation here as well? I was just talking to our correspondent earlier, Michael McKee, about this idea that perhaps there is a small chance here that the Fed does shift its inflation expectations, and there are investors out there who believe that they should. If that were to happen, how does longer term higher inflation impact the companies that you invest in?
So I would say, as far as inflation goes, I see no reason for us to do anything other than to be patient. I mean, I wasn't investing in the 70s, but have certainly studied it. And it seems like just being patient and making sure that we have inflation under control is the right answer. I think the biggest challenge for companies is when they have to live through environments that are rapidly changing. So when inflation hit suddenly, that was very difficult to deal with. I think at this point in time, people can be patient around it, and what we're talking about is not in necessarily inflation skyrocketing again, but rather just being a little more slow to go down to the levels that the Fed wants to see.